This is Jonathan from GutterGuards Direct. Today we are going to review the final results from the 2024 Ultimate GutterGuard Challenge. Before I get into the testing results, I wanted to take a minute and just kind of let you know why I did this test. So beginning in 2020, I decided to do a formal test in which we would find different gutter protection systems, more of the popular ones on the market, and we would install them on my garage. Essentially, I converted my garage from 2 individual runs of gutter to 6 4-foot sections on the south side, 6 4-foot sections on the north side. And then I would add downspouts to each of those. So essentially my garage, instead of being 2 runs of gutter, was now 12 runs of gutter with 12 different downspouts coming off each of the gutters, and it looked a bit like a spider. So it turned out to be a fantastic test environment for what I was doing. And essentially the idea was I would start in late winter or early spring. I would install different gutter protection systems on the gutters, and then I would let them stay up there for an entire year. And I would watch what happened in the meantime, and I'd go up and talk about it. So if you've seen any of the videos, you see me climbing up and down the ladder talking about the different gutter protection systems in different environments, in different kind of situations. So and sometimes it's sunny and windy, sometimes it's rainy, and sometimes there's a little bit of snow out there. So essentially you are able to see firsthand, just like I was, what was happening out there, and I decided to put that out on YouTube as a Ultimate GutterGuard Challenge. So I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen so far. I hope that you found it informative and interesting and educational, because quite honestly, I've gotten a lot out of it as well, and that's really important. And I've been in this business a long, long time. So it's always good to learn new things, and this testing really was no different. This is my dog Murphy. He is, let's say he's needy, very needy. So apparently when I talk to myself on camera, he doesn't like that and he decides to make noise. So I'll pet him for a second and then I'll get back to what we're here to talk about. But at any rate, one of the things that makes the garage such a good test environment is the fact that it has a steep pitch roof. So it has a 45-degree angle slope. It's just a straight run, so it allows me to put up gutters, side by side and test them in an equal sort of setting. The gutter guards either install within the gutter or up under the shingles, depending on how they're designed, and the types of trees that we had with the locust trees and the pine needles, among others, maples and red buds, and you name it, whatever was around the yard, in the yard, or in my neighbor's yards, all came over, landed on top of the garage, and really turned it into a great test environment. So I was really lucky in that regard, and essentially I was able to allow Mother Nature to do her thing. I just essentially recorded and reported on what I saw up there. The testing was roughly anywhere from 11 to 13 or 14 months in duration, just depending on when I could get up there to address it at the beginning and the end of each testing cycle. I never touched the gutter guards while they were up there, so whatever you see up there at any given time is what was just naturally, falling out of the sky. And I did lots of videos in the rain as well. So a combination of what might be sitting on top of the gutter guards, what the rain situation was, because really you want a gutter guard to do 2 things. You want it to be able to shed leaves and debris, as much as leaves and debris as possible, and you want it to take in as much rain water as possible. And what I found in this testing was a lot of gutter guards can do one or the other. They can't necessarily do both very well. So hopefully that's become evident to you. But today what we're going to do is focus on the final results. So what I did was I looked at essentially when the last video, the video prior to this one, we took off the gutter guards. So we identified what was sitting on top of the gutter guards, if anything. we collected that debris, we took it off and either put it into a baggie or put it into a tub, depending on how much debris was there. We then removed the gutter covers, we looked inside, we scooped out whatever was inside the gutters, generally put that also into a baggie, unless it took up more space, such as the open gutter, in which case we put it into a tub. And then I took it inside and I weighed it. In addition to that, but separately, I also did a series of water tests in the 2024. So in 2024, we did 2 water tests, I believe mostly at the end, towards the conclusion of the testing, when things warmed up a little bit. And one of the tests I had to throw away, essentially. I think we had about ½ an inch of rain, so we had enough rain to kind of represent what was happening. But what was interesting was on the south side of the garage, a lot of water got inside the different buckets. On the north side of the garage, almost no water got inside the buckets. It didn't make any sense at the time that I did it. It perplexed me. But what I believe happened was, because we have a steep pitched roof, pretty high roof there, the weather was coming from the south, and so the south side of the garage was getting walloped and the north side relatively scot-free. So second test, it was much more equal, but one of the things I learned, frankly, from that test, from the first water test of the 2024 season, is that you never know what's going to happen, right? Mother Nature's going to do her thing, and you just kind of have to react to what you see. So in this particular instance, the second test I felt was much more representative of both sides of the garage. So it was raining kind of equally on both sides. We were able to effectively collect the water in there. So today's test results are going to be a combination of looking how much water got into the buckets. In other words, came off the roof, came out of the sky, landed on top of the gutter covers, worked its way into the gutter. Whatever's inside the gutter is inside the gutter. I don't know at this point because I haven't taken the covers off. Also, another important thing to say inside the gutter is I put a screen on top of the downspout opening. So I handicapped all these systems to some degree because I wanted to collect as much debris. I didn't want whatever debris that gets inside the gutter to vacate outside and go down the downspout. I wanted to collect it inside the gutter. So the water comes inside the gutter. If it can get all through the screen that I put over the drain system, the downspout system, then that water goes into the buckets below. We can calculate the water in the buckets and we're good to go. In terms of the leaves and debris, we're looking at what's sitting on top of the gutter cover at the conclusion of the test, before we take the gutter cover off, and then we take off the gutter cover. We look at what's inside. Once we get all that stuff out, again, I take it inside, I weigh it, and I measure it. Murphy, we know you're here. We know you're here. It's okay. You can be YouTube famous too. Just turn your head. There you go. There's Murphy. All right, he's a golden doodle and he's high maintenance. He's actually a very good dog, but there are times when, like this, you're trying to talk to somebody, you're trying to have a conversation, you're trying to do something that doesn't involve the dog, he wants to be party to it. So if you just are willing to pet him and hang out with him a little bit, he's all good until you stop and then he starts making more racket. Okay, with that said, we're going to dive into the test results. So what I've done is I've created a series of slides that show the test results on the left-hand column, and then on the right-hand side, I've shown the gutter covers, photos, or video snippets, or a video capture, a screen capture of the gutter guards at different points throughout the year. So essentially in the 2024 test, we started our testing in May. So I'm going to show you each of the gutter covers in May. I'm going to show you each of the gutter covers in October, kind of during the proliferation of stuff falling off the trees. And then again, I'm going to show it to you just prior to us taking it off in April of the following year, when we concluded the test. So hopefully you'll find it really interesting. I found it very interesting, and again, you'll be surprised by the test results. So stay tuned for what's next. This is Valor on the south side of the garage. We installed it in the westernmost position, so it was on the southwest corner of the garage. Valor can be installed in two different methods. One is within the gutter, which is how you see most of the installations out there, and the second installation is up under the shingles. So in this particular case, I had two different panels of the GutterGuard, and I really wanted to see how it worked in both settings. So on the south side here, you're going to see it where we slid it up under the shingles, and then on the north side, you're going to see where it installed within the gutter. In other words, we screwed it down on the front lip, we put it up at a little bit of an angle, and we screwed it to the fascia board. So this is the under shingle installation method. What you'll see is here on the left-hand side, you've got a series of numbers and kind of final tabulations, and then on the right-hand side, you see the photos. So if we start with the photos, basically these are the photos taken at different points during the testing cycle. May being the first month that we put we installed the gutter guards for the 2024 challenge. October, the middle frame, the middle photo there is what it looked like kind of at its worst point when the leaves and debris came down. And then April the following year, when I had a chance to get up there to take off the gutter guards, then you can see what was sitting up there at the time that I climbed up to remove the gutter covers. So if you look at May and April, in this particular case, they look pretty similar. So by sliding it up under the first course of shingles, Valor did an effective job keeping most of the stuff off the gutter cover. Now, clearly there are points throughout the year when there is stuff sitting up there, but again, you kind of see it at the beginning, you see it in the middle, and you see it at the end. In terms of the debris that we collected for this system, there's really two components. It's what's remaining on top of the gutter cover at the conclusion of the test, and then what's inside the gutter once we take off the cover and kind of reveal the contents. So as I stated earlier, we put a screen over top of the downspout opening inside the gutter with the idea that whatever debris gets inside, anything that's larger than the holes of the screen that's inside the gutter will not be able to exit out the downspout. So we're able to capture the debris inside the gutter and you know, kind of make a determination how effective this system is. So with the Valor system, if we go over to the left-hand column, you can see this is Valor under shingle installation method. The amount of debris collected in the gutter at the conclusion of the test was 3.3 ounces. The amount of debris on top of the gutter cover at the conclusion of the test I determined was negligible, and you can see the photo there in the bottom right-hand column. The water intake is really kind of the next interesting thing. So the amount of water that a gutter guard can take, whether it's sitting flat or at an angle, is really critical, because once we have solved the leaf and debris problem, naturally we want to be able to capture as much water as possible. And so this screen has a pretty wide opening, or a pretty porous opening on the screen itself. It's actually the most porous of any of the systems that we tested. I would not technically deem this a micro mesh gutter guard, at least this version of the screen. The openings are just too wide, and that was represented to some degree by the amount of debris that got in there. But what was interesting about it was you know, kind of middle of the road. Actually, we're looking at 8 different gutter protection systems here. I will give you kind of a total analysis at some point here in the video that kind of shows these things side by side. But for this one, there were 8 gutter guards that we tested in 2024. There were 3 additional gutter guards that we tested as part of our long-term test. We did not factor in the long-term test items, which includes LeafFilter, MasterShield, and Klean Gutter. Those were the 3 systems that we brought in from previous years, or in the case of LeafFilter and MasterShield had been sitting on the gutter ever since we began it. So this was essentially 3 years hence. We never touched those gutter guards. So we're only going to talk about the 8 gutter guards that we specifically featured in 2024. Valor being one of the 8. I guess really maybe there's 7. Valor installed 2 different ways, but the 2 combinations of the Valor plus the other 6 systems up there gave us a total of 8 slots. So Valor took in 1.89 gallons of water, which again is 5th place. So essentially out of 8 systems it came in 5th. The debris, it was just middle of the pack. Out of 8 systems it ranked 4th in its ability to keep the leaves and debris out of the gutter. And I think that's of importance to a large extent. Obviously you can look at the top picture in May, not much sitting on top of it. April, not much stuff sitting on top of it. It's really a matter of what happens in the every day of the year in between those 2 photos that really makes a difference. So the fact that it allowed leaves and debris inside, or not really so much leaves, but more the pine needles and some of the smaller stuff could get through those penetrations in the screen. There's also a possibility of stuff kind of blowing in from the sides. That can happen. And certainly in my testing environment, it's probably more likely to happen because it's a little bit harder to prevent, you've just got individual sections of gutter guard, so you don't have like just a continuous run from one end of a gutter to another. So perhaps these products are handicapped a little bit in this test environment, but nonetheless, it allowed in a pretty good bit of debris, and its ability to take in the water at this angle, and this was about a 30-degree angle, 30-degree angle. It didn't perform as well as some of the other systems. So that is Valor on the south side of the garage. This is Cheese Grater on the south side of the garage. So I don't know the name of this product, but essentially it's a louvered panel. So it's a metal panel that gets, the holes get punched out of it, and the louvers are upside down. So instead of the louvers facing on the top side of the gutter, they are facing to the underside of the gutter. And essentially the concept here is that the leaves and debris shift off the roof, and because it's got a smooth finish to it or smooth top to it, most of that stuff theoretically slides off the top of it, goes to the ground below, and then the water, when it comes across the gutter cover, is able to go through those slots and drop into the gutter. And I would say by and large that concept works, but what you'll see here on this slide, if we start at the photos in the top right-hand corner, that is shortly after we installed it while it was raining outside. And you can see the little locust flowers that have come off the tree, landed on the roof, landed on the gutter cover. And one of the challenges with this system is that those slots are pretty small and in a way are kind of ideally suited to allow those locust flowers to get stuck in those slots. Not to say that they all did get stuck in those slots. They certainly didn't. It did take in water, but you can also see on that top photo where the design of this one's a little bit different. So once the water gets past those individual slots, those little downward louvers, then the water has really nowhere to go but over the edge. So it kind of works its way up over that front lip of the gutter and then down the side, down the face of the gutter. So this was a system that did okay with the water overall, but it was also one that was more prone to having water come over the face of the gutter, and in fact got pretty dirty over time, because whatever debris came over the top was generally dragged by the water there. You'll see in the October shot in the middle there, it has a bunch of pine needles and a bunch of the leaves off the locust tree. There's some maple leaves and some other random leaves floating around there. And perhaps if you look closely at that, you can even see some of the pine needles are getting inside the slots on top of the gutter cover. So that's kind of the Achilles heel of the system, is that you've got those openings that could potentially get stuff either inside the gutter or stuck out of those holes, which then can cause other stuff to get stuck behind it. However, if you go to the bottom photo, you'll see that at the conclusion of the year, there really wasn't anything sitting on top of it. Again, you can see a few pine needles, and you can see a couple of purple flowers or petals off of the redbud tree that sits behind the garage. But by and large, frankly, it looks better at the end of the test than it did at the in the May shot there. So it goes to show you that a lot of the stuff was ultimately able to blow off the top of the system. This was designed to slide up under the first course of shingles, so it also had a pretty good slope on it, and that certainly helps usher the leaves and debris off the top. If we go over to the left-hand column, you'll see that kind of the ranking there. So the amount of debris that got into the gutters was a lot, 8.1 ounces. And that put it at 7th place. So out of 8 systems, it came in second to last place. Now this does not factor in the open gutter that, obviously didn't have a cover on top of it. That one performed the worst out of the lot. But in terms of all the gutter covers, the cheese grater system came in 7th place out of 8. In terms of its water standing, it came in 4th place, so it actually did a little bit better than some of the micro mesh gutter guards that were up there. And quite honestly, that was a surprise to me. I figured that you would get less water in a system like this, not more water, but it came in 4th place, so it was middle of the pack in terms of that. So that is the cheese grater on the south side of the garage. This is HydroFlo on the south side of the garage. So this is a contractor grade micro mesh gutter protection system that is designed to install within the gutter. My understanding is this is supposed to be the kind of the LeafFilter killer. It's a all aluminum framework. It has a very rigid stainless steel screen that goes down the center channel. It's a system that actually offers, I think, different screen densities. So you can essentially slide the screen in and out for whatever your particular situation is. I think this one we purchased at a local gutter supply house. This is the screen density that they offer, and my sense is it's probably kind of middle of the road. It's not super fine, or perhaps it's the only one that's available to gutter contractors. But the screen definitely gets inserted in, or can get inserted in, or swapped out as needed. So this system, as you can see, if you look at the top right photo, the May shot, it's got some of the locust flowers sitting on top of it. You can see a couple of pine needles that have already stuck through the screen. So the screen is not so tight in this that it's going to prevent something like the pine needles from getting inside the gutter, but it is tight enough that it should keep out a lot of other stuff. The gutter guard itself is, because it's designed to screw down on the front lip and screw to the fascia board, it lives within the gutter. So we got a forward slope on it. It's really hard to tell in these photos, and quite honestly, it's hard to tell sometimes on the videos unless you see a side shot. But it does have a forward slope to it, and I'd say a pretty decent forward slope to it. And maybe that's represented to some degree by the fact that those locust flowers are kind of at the front end of the gutter guard there. But with that said, if we jump down to the October photo, because it's sitting flatter, you're much more likely to have leaves and debris sitting on top of it. And there's no shortage of leaves sitting on top of it. Come October, you can't see the screen at all in this shot. You can see a little bit of the black frame there sitting on top of the lip of the gutter, but otherwise this thing is totally buried in leaves and pine needles and the stems off the locust tree. However, jump forward to April the following year, and you can see most of that stuff has shifted off the top. It's been replaced with some smaller leaves, and then the stuff that you see that just kind of looks like brown, that's probably a combination of shingle granules. and then just some of the debris that didn't vacate. Probably, honestly, some of the locust flowers from the first year that did not fully disembark from the screen, hung out there. They just decayed and dried up. You know, eventually that stuff will probably turn into dirt, but we'll never know because we removed it in April. So if we move over to the left-hand column, you can see that this took in 4.7 ounces of material. So nearly 5 ounces of material got inside the gutter cover over the course of the year. That was enough for it to finish in 6th place. So 6 out of 8 gutter protection systems, it was in the bottom of the pack in terms of its ability to keep stuff out of the gutter. So again, its claim is that it's a micro mesh gutter guard, but it's not really acting like a micro mesh gutter guard because it's allowing in a decent amount of stuff. Where this one really fell down, or fell down even farther, was the fact that it came in last place for its ability to absorb the water. Again, if you look at the bottom photo, you can see this thing is nothing but screen, right? So you've got a framework underneath it with slots, and then the screen that slides down that center channel. And the idea here is that it should take in water without fail. But the reality is it didn't take in water without fail. And in fact, in one of our water tests, not a water test per se, but one of the videos when it was raining pretty hard outside, I remember that water was actually coming over the front lip of this gutter guard. So for whatever reason, that screen does not have the ability to take in nearly as much water as it would appear. And obviously it also doesn't have the ability to shed the leaves and debris throughout the course of the year. But, you know, it did start out pretty clean and it did end up pretty clean. So if you ignore it long enough, the leaves and debris may move off the top, may not move off the top. It's a bit of a gamble, but its ability to take in the water, I think, is questionable and something that you would probably want to question whether you'd want this system on your house. So that is HydroFlo from the south side of the garage. On the south side of the garage, we kept one gutter open. We didn't put a gutter cover on top of it. We've done that as a way to kind of plan on what you would expect or guess as to what you would expect over the course of time. So, you know, it's easy to put a gutter cover up there and by and large keep most of the stuff out of the gutters, but if you don't know what you're comparing against, then it can be a little bit of a black hole. In this case, it's a wide open gutter that easily accepts whatever is coming its way, which is what most folks have on their homes before they install gutter guards. So, with that said, let me point you to the 3 photographs. They're pretty self-explanatory. The top one is just a clip from a video I took. I didn't have a great angle of the interior of the gutter, so it's kind of a close-up that shows you the interior of the gutter in May when it was raining outside. So at this point we had some debris that had come off the locust tree, those flowers. You can see a couple of leaves and some pine needles inside there. This also kind of gives you a shot where the opening of the downspout is. So it's kind of in that upper right section of the photo there. We actually have a screen sitting over top of that opening to prevent the leaves and debris from vacating out of the gutter. If you drop down to the October photo, you'll see that the gutters are moderately full at that point, at least 50-60% full. At that point on October, naturally you can see the leaves that are and the stems and things that are sitting up on the garage roof. So as that stuff shifts off the top, whatever doesn't blow off the roof to the ground will then enter into the gutter. So that will tend to fill up a little bit more, and odds are that gutter will basically be full. But the gap of time between May and October allows a lot of that early stuff, the stuff that you see there in May, it starts to decay and it loses some of its loft, if you will, or its volume inside the gutter. So odds are the gutter's going to fully fill up or mostly fill up by the time all the leaves and debris come down. And then if you drop down to the April shot for the following year, you can see there's definitely more stuff inside the gutter in that shot than there was back in October, but it looks compacted. It looks like it's kind of compressed down. So you've got a lot of the stems off the locust tree, you've got pine needles, you've got leaves, you've got just a whole variety of stuff that is in various stages of decay inside the gutter. But the bottom line is there's a lot of stuff in there. So if you come over to the left-hand column, you'll see that we collected almost 6 pounds worth of material out of that section of gutter, which is a lot of material. You know, for a gutter that's roughly 4 feet long, you're looking at about 1.5 pounds per foot. Imagine that being over the entire run of a 40 or 50 foot run of gutter. The challenge you have, and what I haven't photographed here and what I really didn't pay attention to was, you know, what would the snow and ice load be if you had a good amount of snow and ice. But the bottom line is, if you've got 6 pounds of material in April sitting in there in the heat of the winter or the cold of the winter, you know, with a decent amount of snow and ice, there's going to be a tremendous amount of weight sitting inside your gutter. And in addition to that, you know, the water will more likely build up inside there. It's less likely to drain, you know, properly with all that stuff wedged inside the gutter. So nearly 6 pounds of gutter, or excuse me, 6 pounds of debris in the gutter. Obviously, we're not worried about what's on top of the gutter cover because it doesn't exist. The other thing, this took in 2.18 gallons of water in our last water test. So when you compare that to the system that actually sat to its right, which was the RainDrop system, this took in a little bit more water. I think the RainDrop system, if I'm not mistaken, was, let me check here, 2.13 gallons versus 2.18. So if you look at the open gutter as kind of your baseline at 100%, RainDrop took in 98% of that total, which is pretty darn good. Unfortunately, RainDrop also took in a lot of debris along with it, as did this system. So did best for water intake overall. We didn't factor that as the best, as the leading product, because there's no product sitting on top of it. But not a lot more water went into the open gutter than went into some of the other gutter covers. So what that tells you is those other gutter covers are fully capable of taking most of the water and depositing it into the gutter and into the downspout rather than over the top of the gutter cover itself. And then obviously, naturally, with the debris intake, since it's an open gutter, it also performed the worst there. So I thought that would be an interesting result to share with you. That way you can kind of baseline the different systems compared to the open gutter there on the south side of the garage. Now we're looking at RainDrop from the south side of the garage. If we start with the photos on the top right there at May, you'll see that the locust flowers were falling off the trees when we took this photo. It was in the early days of those locust flowers coming off. But what's interesting about this system, I had never seen this. I'd heard about this product before. But what I found interesting about it was the fact that somebody actually thought, let's create a bunch of vertical lines, ribs, and some support channels underneath it, some support ribs underneath there, and let's see what happens to the water. So the RainDrop concept is that the water would essentially go between those openings, between those ribs, and then drop through into the gutter. And in fact, it did exactly that. It did a really good job overall taking in the water, as you will see here in a moment. But again, you can see these locust flowers are pretty small, and some of them are sitting on top. Some of them are kind of wedged in between those ribs, and frankly, by this point, even some of them had gotten inside. If we drop to the October photo there in the middle, you'll see a proliferation of pine needles, and then the leaves, mostly the leaves off the locust tree. You'll see some maple leaves as well, and then you'll see the stems, those kind of broader stems that are up there. You can see some of those up at the roof level, where the locust leaves had separated from the stems. And so you had a combination of leaves, stems, and pine needles on top of this gutter cover. And again, it's hard to tell. You can see a little bit of the black frame, below that stuff, but you can't really see to what extent stuff has gotten inside at this point. But when we drop down to April, we've gotten through winter, fall, winter, and we're now approaching spring. Again, you can see pretty much nothing sitting on top of it. Off to the right there, you can see a little bit of a pine needle that's kind of sticking its rear out of the top. Because what would often happen is those pine needles come down in clumps of 4 and 5. And as the case was here, they separated when they fell into the screen. So essentially one of those ribs is preventing the pine needle from dropping all the way inside. You can see a little bit of the purple flowers off the redbud tree, and then just a couple other items from the trees. So overall, I think this did an effective job keeping stuff off the top of the gutter cover. I was actually, pretty impressed by that throughout the course of the year. So that was a strong suit. However, the question is, where did that debris go? So if we go over to the left-hand column, what you'll see is the amount of debris that we collected inside the gutters was 18.3 ounces. It was a tremendous amount of debris. In fact, it was the worst performing system of any of the gutter covers that we had installed or that we were testing in 2024, and it was worse by a mile. Just a tremendous amount of stuff. So for instance, the best performing system had less than 1 ounce of material in there, so this was roughly 18 times worse than the best performing system. The amount of debris that was on the cover at the end, as you can see in that bottom right photo, is negligible. Where this system performed really well was its water intake. It took first place in the water aspect of the competition. It's not to say all the water went into the gutter all the time, but because obviously you have a pretty wide opening there in which the water can go, it won first place, and it took in 2.13 gallons of water in our water test. So did really well taking in the water, did really poorly preventing leaves and debris from getting inside the gutter. And I think this is a good case in point of, you want a gutter guard to do two things. You don't want a gutter guard just to do one thing. Now, if you live in an environment that's not as tough as this, so you've got leaves and trees that are a good distance from your house and you're getting the blowover effect, well, this system does a heck of a job taking in the water. I would say by and large it would keep the bigger leaves out by and large. And it might be something that you'd want to consider in that type of environment. But if you live in a wooded environment, you can see the results here from this. So this is RainDrop on the south side of the garage. Here we're looking at the solid gutter cover on the south side of the garage. This was our token solid cover. Basically what happens, if you look at the photo on the top right corner that says May, the water comes off the roof, it follows the pathway it attaches to the gutter cover, and then it follows that rounded nose where it goes through those slots into the gutter below. This type of technology has been around for a long time. The first patent was in about 1908. I think the system gained popularity probably in the 80s and 90s. And this particular version, the solid gutter cover, was actually invented by a fellow that I know. This is a guy who got me into this business. So I am well familiar with this system. Its design has been modified to some extent over the years because he licensed it off to a bigger manufacturer. They tinkered around with it for a while, but they finally brought back that more bulbous nose. And I would say overall, it does a better job. This is a product that, I don't know, it might cost you $1 a foot. You know, it's an inexpensive plastic system. I would say it's not designed to last a lifetime. However, if you install it properly as a DIY product, it's one that probably would stay up there for many, many years. So you'll see where this one did really well. Because it's a solid cover, there's not a ton of friction on that plastic. There's really, generally speaking, you're not going to see a lot of stuff sticking to the top of the cover. Naturally, if it's wet outside, you're more likely to see something sticking to it. But if it's dry outside, generally speaking, the leaves and debris will just roll off the roof, come off the trees, and bounce off the top of this cover. So this is not a system that falls apart when it's nice out. It's a system that has a more difficult time when it's wet outside. So if we go down to the October photo there in the middle panel, you'll see a lot of the locust leaves and then the stems that hold the locust leaves in place on top of the gutter cover. Looks like there might be a maple leaf as well. And I'm sure there's a smattering of pine needles floating around. But the Achilles heel of this type of system is the fact that the water has to go around that corner. And it's not the fact that it goes around the corner, it's the fact that you've got a slot or a channel that kind of sits between the lip of the gutter and the gutter panel itself. And so in this particular case, you can see quite a few of those leaves stuck in that channel across the front of the gutter cover. And that tends to be the downfall of this system. If you get enough stuff stuck in that slot, in that channel, then it potentially prevents or blocks the ability for the water to get inside there. With that said, this system performed way better. This was like the surprise of 2024. I did not have a clue that it would perform as well as it did. I thought it would do pretty well with the leaves and debris on the top. And as you can see in the May photo and then the April photo, they ostensibly look the same, right? There's really nothing sitting on top of the gutter cover, nothing meaningful. If you look at the top photo, you don't even see any leaves and debris in that channel or those slots. But if you look at the October photo, you definitely see leaves sitting in those slots, and that's where things start to fall apart potentially. But then if you drop down to April at the following year there, you can also see leaves and debris in those slots and kind of blocked up that channel to some extent, but not enough that it would prevent the water from getting inside. And that's the surprising thing about this. The solid gutter cover had only 1.9 ounces of debris inside it for the entire year. So to put that into perspective, the product that sat next to it, which was the RainDrop system, had over 18 ounces, over a pound of material inside it. But the solid gutter cover kept that number to under 2, which made it strong enough to rank second out of all 8 systems that we had up there this year. And in fact, it outperformed most of the micro mesh gutter guards in this test. I couldn't believe it. I was very surprised to see that. The other thing that it did really well, and I thought it didn't have a fighting chance on the water, it also placed second for its ability to take in the water. This was a total shocker. This is a DIY product that has been available in the marketplace for about 25 years now, and it costs next to nothing. I have removed this product from houses so many times. It is far from perfect, but in our testing, ranked number 2 for water intake and number 2 for debris intake. It repelled more debris than 7 other systems in this test. That is a real shocker to me. And then the final thing, negligible amount of debris on top at the end of the cycle there in April. So kudos to the solid gutter cover. It, in many regards, kicked the butts of some of the other systems, and that was a real surprise to me, and a testament to my friend Alan, who created this system many, many years ago. So that is the solid gutter cover on the south side of the garage. Here we're looking at Valor on the north side of the garage. So we have two versions of installing this system, the same product, just two different installation methods. Here on the north side, we've installed it within the gutter. On the south side of the garage, you will see that we installed it up under the first course of shingles. So here on the north side, basically you screw it down on the front lip. You pull the panel up as high of an angle as you possibly can, and then you screw it into the fascia board on the back side. The challenge is, at least on this installation with the way my garage roof is configured, is I've got a drip edge there. You can see on that top photo, you see the gutter guard kind of at the rear of that, and you see a dingier white color underneath the shingles there. That is the drip edge. So the reality is I can only pop that thing up so high because I've got a drill bit on my drill that is probably 1/4 of an inch thick. So you essentially raise the back of the panel up, you screw through the back of the panel, but you got to leave enough real estate there to get your drill bit in and out. So it doesn't sit up quite as high as perhaps it could in a different installation if you lowered the gutters a little bit more. But it had a forward slope on it, and a forward slope that wasn't really unlike, say, a LeafFilter, which is also on the same side of the garage as part of the long-term test. So looking at that top photo, the May shot, you can see some of the locust flowers and some of the pine needles have landed on top of the gutter screen. And this was probably about as good as it looked throughout the entire duration of the test. Leaves and debris just kept coming and coming and coming and coming. And by the time we got to October, you can see in that middle panel, hard to even see the screen. Perhaps if you look really close, you might see little glimmers of the silver screen like under the R in October. But by and large, this baby was covered up, and it just didn't really improve too much over the course of the year. Which leads us down to April of the following year, where you can also see everything that used to have some color to it has now kind of dried out, gone brown. You can see a little bit of pink off flower petals off the redbud tree from the April blossoming the following year. But by and large, the stuff that's sitting up there is pine needles, is the stems off the locust tree that held the leaves in place, and then it's a whole lot of leaves just kind of baked on top of that system. So of the two installation methods, the preferred method, easily the preferred method would be installing it up under the first course of shingles. You can see what happens if you install it within the gutter. Unfortunately, I think most of the Valor dealers install it within the gutter. So unless they can get a heck of an angle on it, and even if they can get a heck of an angle on it, because it has a relatively, actually has a very porous screen, you can see in that top image, you can literally see the screen through the screen. It's not micro mesh. This is the system that they tout that it's got a wavy screen. It's got like an S curve to the screen. It's supposed to cause the leaves and debris not to stick to it. You can see from the very beginning stuff is sticking to it. You can see in the middle that stuff is sticking to it. And you can see at the end that stuff is sticking to it. So that marketing hype is just hype. There's no basis in reality for this particular system with this installation method. If you look at the other video or the other segment here in this video, where it was installed up under the first course of shingles at an angle, well, that did a whole lot better, and that would be my preferred installation method if you're going to purchase this system. Now let's take a look at the numbers. We look at the amount of debris that got inside the gutter cover. A pretty high number, 3.9 ounces, which allowed it to fall in 5th place. So it came 5th out of 8 systems for its ability to keep leaves and debris out of the gutters. Most of what got through here was smaller stuff, but again, the porosity in that screen is such that smaller stuff could get through it, including lots of pine needles. And in terms of its ability to take in the water, it was kind of fair to middling. In fact, I think the Valor was kind of next to each other. The two Valor systems, whether it was up at an angle or whether it was sitting flat, more or less were similar. I think we had 1.86 gallons on the south side, and here we've got 1.82 gallons. So it actually took in less water sitting flatter in the gutter, which is kind of counterintuitive, but you can see how much debris was sitting on top of it, so that probably accounts for that difference in its ability to take in the water. So it placed 6th place out of 8 systems for its ability to take in the water, 5th place for its ability to keep out the leaves and debris. And then the final measurement is how much stuff is sitting on top of the gutter cover at the conclusion. You can see in the photo there from April that there was a bunch of stuff sitting on top of it. In fact, so much we had 1.5 pounds of material sitting on top of that gutter cover when we took it off there at the conclusion of the test, which made it, of all the systems, including the long-term testers, it was either the worst or the second worst out of the lot. And yeah, I would say it is unacceptable if you're going to pay a lot of money for a high-end gutter guard. So that is Valor installed within the gutter on the north side of the garage. Now we're looking at GutterDome from the north side of the garage. This particular gutter guard, I first got my hands on it in about 2011 or 2012. It was I believe, a spin-off of another system, and I really like the look of this one. I think if you were looking for a gutter guard that was really attractive, this one fits the bill. However, that's about where it ends. So it is also a micro mesh gutter guard. You can see in the top right photo there in the May shot, it has a relatively fine micro mesh screen. You can see the debris, some of the locust flowers, a couple pine needles, and even some shingle granules that have come off the roof. By and large, that stuff is too large to get through the screen opening on that system. So it's kind of a nice combination. It's a nice look. It's an extruded metal system, nice look, and a relatively nice screen on this system. When you drop down to the October photo, you can kind of see a top-down view there. So some of the leaves and debris are shifting off the roof. Some of it's sitting up on the gutter cover, but the gutter cover, by and large, the screen is too fine. So that stuff isn't like clinging to the gutter per se or into the screen itself. It's simply just sitting on top of it. And then when you drop down to the April photo, you can see by and large that stuff shifted off the top of it. So from beginning to end, this thing always did a really nice job keeping most of the leaves and debris off the gutter covers. Whatever sat up there for a relatively short period of time before it shifted off the top. So this was a system that I always felt, its strong suit is its ability to shed leaves and debris. It is designed to slide up under the first course of shingles, so it has a nice forward slope to it. And overall, I think that's its strong suit. Where it falls down is its ability to take in the water. And this was something that I saw all the way back in 2011. So kind of jump forward to today. They made a couple of modifications to the product. This was the modified product that I had received from them at that time. And I think its shortcoming is it's just its design. It just is not designed to take in as much water as the other systems are. It looks great. It's going to do a great job keeping the leaves and debris off. it's just not going to do a great job keeping the water inside the gutter. You're going to see more of that water go over the top. So if we go over to the left-hand column, you'll see the amount of leaves and debris, mostly small stuff, that got through that screen was 2.3 ounces over the course of the year. So that was strong enough to put it in third place overall. One place behind the solid gutter cover that you can buy at Home Depot and Lowe's. This fancy micro mesh gutter guard didn't do quite as well as that, which is really hard for me to believe, but that's what it is. So third place out of 8 for its ability to keep leaves and debris out of the gutters, but it did a lowly 7th place for its ability to take in water. And that is the sad truth of the system. Great looking system, just not designed to take the water in like you would think it should. I mean, it's basically a screen over top of a framework. It should have the ability to take in the water. It's a great looking system. It just falls down. And you know, when you're at the bottom of the pack for a gutter guard that is, you know, one of its 2 jobs is to take in as much water as possible, this baby just isn't cutting it. So great job on the debris aspect of things, really poor job on its ability to absorb the water. Therefore, you know, this is not a product that I would recommend based on its current design. So that is GutterDome on the north side of the garage. This is ArmourGuard that we had installed on the north side of the garage. So the panel, if you look at the May shot at the top, you can see that the product is sitting pretty much flat inside the gutter. In fact, we had flattened. This one was designed to install within the gutter. So it would screw down on the front lip. It had a little 90-degree bend on the back of it, and you would screw it to the front lip and then the fascia board on the back side of the gutter. It was also a 5-inch panel, and we had a 6-inch gutter. And just to be perfectly honest, I didn't want to take the gutter off and have to create a new gutter for the 5-inch version of it in order to make it fit properly. So I made the executive decision to add an extension piece to the rear portion of this gutter guard, which would then allow us to put it up at an angle and slide it up under the first course of shingles. So I'm going to say right up front here, had we installed it the way that we had received the product, that it was designed to install within the gutter, it would have performed just as poorly as the Valor system, and just as poorly as our long-term tester, LeafFilter. Designed to install within the gutter, relatively flat, even if you can get it up at an angle, it needs to be a serious angle in order for it to shed leaves and debris. And by and large, these products can't get enough of an angle between where the gutter sits and where the roof line sits. So your best bet is to slide it up under the first course of shingles. Now, what is hopefully a surprise to anybody who is watching this, and especially if you are the manufacturer of this product or an installer, All-American Gutter Protection, if you put a panel on the back of it, if you put an extension piece on the back of this product and you put it up under the shingles, it did a really good job. I was impressed by how well of a job it did. Leaves and debris, it shed stuff without any problem throughout the course of the year, and its ability to take in the water was also solid. So this is a case where I believe one of the accepted installation methods is to slide it up under the shingles, put that little extension panel on the back of it if they don't make it long enough to slide it up under the shingles, and then, let it be. But if you're installing it within the gutter, you're just not going to get the performance that this one had. So we essentially gave this product an advantage by changing the installation method, and I just want to note that up front. So Again, if we look at the top cover or top photo there, you're looking at the May shot where it's sitting flat. The locust flowers are falling off the tree in the beginning stages. Had we left it like that, it would have just filled up really fast. But what we ended up doing is, as you see in the October shot there in the middle screen, you can see there's a little piece of metal that kind of sits just below the shingles there. That's the extension piece that slid up underneath the shingles that allowed us to get it up at a nice angle. And yeah, there's some leaves and debris sitting on top of it now, but by and large, that stuff couldn't sit up there. It was just loosely up there. And as the winds came through, as the rains came through, it would blow off the top. Now, I will say that this screen was probably a little bit more porous than the GutterDome system, and we did have a few more instances of pine needles getting inside that, which is, you know, not the end of the world by any stretch if you're getting a few pine needles through here and there. But there were definitely some instances of the pine needles sticking into that screen and allowing some of those leaves to get stuck up there behind it, as you will see in other videos. However, with that said, it did a bang-up job. It was the first place winner, slid up under the shingles, first place in its ability to keep leaves and debris out of the gutters. So we might be able to extrapolate from this that if it sat flat in the gutter like it was designed, like we received the product, that it also would have done the best job keeping leaves and debris out of the gutters. But we'll never know because we slid it up under the shingles. So if you're willing to slide it up under the shingles, it's going to do a nice job keeping leaves and debris out. Congratulations to the ArmourGuard system for that. And its ability to absorb water. It was always one that it looked like it was working, you know, but sometimes it didn't look like it was working. And as it turns out, it came in third place out of 8. So it was more or less in the top third of all the systems, certainly in the top half. So the fact that it's keeping the leaves and debris out and that it did a decent job with the water, this is a system that you could certainly consider from a professionally installed perspective. It is manufactured, I believe, in Wisconsin under the name ArmourGuard. It is available in a number of states from a company called All American Gutter Protection System. It's an extruded metal system. I believe it's an offshoot. I think they've licensed the patents from the Gutter Glove Pro folks. So it's not necessarily an original design, it's a modification of an original design, but quite honestly, Gutter Glove Pro was a knockoff of LeafFilter anyway. So whatever, it did a nice job. First place on its ability to keep the leaves and debris out of the gutters, third place for its ability to take in the water, and there was a negligible amount of debris remaining on the cover, as you can see in that April shot on the right. So that is ArmourGuard from the north side of the garage. Here we're looking at MasterShield on the north side of the garage. So MasterShield we originally installed in, I think it was March of 2020. The system, at the point that you see it here in that May shot, you can see I have an asterisk there. So that indicates that the product had been installed at that point for 26 months. So it had been up there for more than 2 years. Obviously, it doesn't look pristine, brand new at that point. And it was a raining day out there. So just a couple of interesting points on this system. MasterShield has 3 strips of copper that are woven into the screen. So it's got a 3/16 stainless steel screen with the copper that gets woven into that screen. You can see in the middle shot, perhaps you can see a little bit of the copper look in the screen at the top, the middle, and at the bottom. You can see a little bit of that as well on the May shot. But in that May shot, it was a rainy day. You can see some of the flowers off the locust tree, and then immediately behind where this product is sitting was a redbud tree, so it tended to get whacked a little bit more with stuff from the redbud tree. So you see a few pine needles, you see a couple of leaves, you see some of the locust flowers, and you see some of the redbud activity up there. this system was a consistent performer. It just pretty much did what it was supposed to do from beginning to end. If you look at the October photo there in the middle, you can see that, again, there's just some stuff loosely sitting on top of it. As I'd pointed out in other videos, we always had a little bit more product or more leaves and debris kind of on that left-hand corner. When there was stuff up there, there wasn't always stuff up there, but occasionally when there was stuff up there, there was always a little bit more debris kind of sitting off to the left. And in part, it's because I think we put our thumb a little heavy on the GutterGuard when we were putting on the end cap, and then it also sits immediately next to LeafFilter, and LeafFilter always had stuff sitting on top of it. So by and large, throughout the course of the year, there was very little stuff ever sitting on top of this system. It always shed the leaves and debris really well. If you drop down to the April shot there the following year, you can see this is now 37 months after we initially installed the product. We're taking it off, in April, so we're already starting to get some of the spring flowers blossoming off the trees, and you can see some of the flowers off the redbud tree there, and maybe a random pine needle or two. So MasterShield as a product in 2024, if you were to compare it to the 2024 results, would have been the #1 system. I believe perhaps the RainDrop system took in just a smidge more water than, like 1/10 or something, a little bit more water. Maybe it was a couple tenths more, or hundredths, excuse me, of water than the MasterShield system did after it's been up there for 3 years. But for the long-term test, it took in the most water. And the long-term test, again, we're limiting to 3 products at this point. We're limiting it to MasterShield, LeafFilter, and Klean Gutter. Both MasterShield and LeafFilter being up there for 3 years. Klean Gutter having been technically up there for 2 years, but we had to move it from the south side of the garage to the north side of the garage. So in essence, it had only been installed on the north side of the garage for a year, but had essentially been up for a total of 2 years in 2 different locations. So the debris in the gutter after 3 years was 0.2 ounces. The baggie that we used to weigh the material is also 0.2 ounces. So yes, there was a little bit of material inside there, but it wasn't enough to register. It wasn't enough to pop it up by 1/10 of an ounce to 3/10 of an ounce. It all fell within the 2/10 of an ounce of the baggie weight. So more or less, nothing got inside that system after 3 years. And I've heard from other homeowners who have owned this product who have had to remove it for whatever reason, usually getting a new roof, or they get up there, they're just curious and they look inside it. And by and large, there's nothing inside their gutters. So kudos to MasterShield for keeping pretty much everything out. The amount of debris at the conclusion of our test was negligible. You can see a few of those flowers sitting up there, but that wasn't enough to justify any weight coming out of it. And then its ability to take in the water for the long-term testers was 2.12 gallons, 8 liters, which put it at the top edge of the test. And that's just kind of how we saw this thing throughout time. It always did a really good job with the water. It always did a really good job with the leaves and debris. And it's just kind of, it's one of the few rock stars among gutter protection systems out there on the market. So that is MasterShield from the north side of the garage after 3 years. Here we're looking at LeafFilter from the north side of the garage. If you look at the top right photo, the May shot, this is 26 months after we initially installed it. So the first installation had happened a little over 2 years prior to this photo being taken. You can quickly scan the 3 photos, and what do you see? The common denominator is there's pretty much always something sitting on top of it, and there was really no exception in the beginning of year 3 of our testing with the LeafFilter system. We've received a lot of comments from people that purport that we installed this product incorrectly. And I just want to be clear, we used to be a dealer for this product. We used to install this product for a living. People used to pay us to put this product on their homes. I was a fan of this product. In 2008, when I first learned of LeafFilter, I liked this product a lot. I felt like it was the best gutter guard on the market at the time for what it did. And what it does, and what it does really well, is it keeps leaves and debris out of your gutters. So if you care about nothing other than keeping leaves and debris out of your gutters, LeafFilter will do the job. It does a really nice job overall. The problem with this system is it all comes down to the design, and you have to look at this. This was the original micro mesh gutter guard. A guy named Alex Higginbotham from Virginia created this gutter guard many, many years ago, like in 1999. And he did a really good job with it, but there were some shortcomings to it. And as your first invention, you would expect you're going to have some things that work well and some things that don't work really well. And if you're a good inventor, odds are you're going to invent another product that improves upon what you have here. So LeafFilter was the first micro mesh gutter guard. He then created a product called MasterShield, which is also part of our long-term test here. So first one was LeafFilter, second one was MasterShield. Very similar in some ways and very different in other ways. And the primary difference we can say here, really two things. LeafFilter is made from plastic or PVC, so it is subject to expansion and contraction and warping. And then the other thing is it is designed to live within the gutter. So the frame is a little bit fatter on the back and a little bit skinnier on the front. And when that sits on the hanger inside the gutter, that creates the forward slope. So technically, if you install your gutters properly and you put your hangers in your gutter properly, you're going to get about a 10 or 11 degree slope on this product when it's installed within the gutter, and that's exactly what we had here. So it looks like it's flat inside the gutter. It's not. It actually has a 10 or 11 degree slope on it, and we verified that with a slope meter. So long and short of it is, the flatter your gutter guard sits inside your gutter, the more likely you're going to get leaves and debris that will build up on top of it. In the case of LeafFilter, by and large, it will keep that stuff out of the gutter, but it's not going to keep the stuff from sitting on top of the gutter guard. So I think what they've done, what LeafFilter has done, is they have started adding, they've been doing this for a long time, but they add additional hangers inside the gutter. And then they encourage their installers to put the hangers at a steeper slope so that the gutter guard will be at a steeper slope to give it a fighting chance for stuff to blow off or wash off the top of the gutter guard. The problem with that approach is, if that's what's happening, and quite honestly, when I look in the field, I usually don't see that, but I've heard that from a lot of comments that people have made on YouTube. So if that's what they're actually doing, it's probably going to make the product perform worse over time than just installing it the way that it was designed to install. But I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to get into the proper installation method, which is what you see here in the photo. So in the May shot, you can see after 26 months, we still have a bunch of stuff sitting on top of it. You go to the October shot, you can, maybe you can see a little bit of the screen under there, like over the downspout, you can see a little bit of screen. But by and large, there's a bunch of stuff sitting on top of it. It's not to say that stuff never left the top of this system, because it did. It cycled in and out. But there was never, ever a time where it was all screen and nothing else sitting on top of it. It always had something on there. Sometimes it had more, sometimes it had less. But you can see in these three shots at the beginning of our test for the 2024 season, which would be basically 26 months after this product was installed as part of the long-term test, there's a bunch of stuff sitting on top of it. Come October, a bunch of stuff sitting on top of it. Now, loosely sitting on top of it here, it looks, you can kind of see it looks dry. It's just kind of lofty sitting on top of the gutter cover. So there's a fighting chance that it might blow off. But then, and this is at the end of the leaf falling season, this October shot, this was taken at the end of October. So there's not a lot more stuff to come down. But then you go to April the following year, and what do you see? Even more stuff sitting on top of it. So whatever came down after that October shot just kept building up on top of it and created a huge mound of stuff on top of that gutter cover. And as you can kind of see where the roof line is, you know, not all that's sitting on top of the gutter cover. Some of it's just wedged up against the roof shingles there. But the bottom line is, installed properly, if you live in a wooded environment or a reasonably treed environment, certainly areas around your house, you might expect a scene like this. You might find other areas work perfectly fine, but that's what you got in this particular case after 3 years up on the garage. If we go over to the left-hand column, you can see the amount of debris in the gutters. So less than 1 ounce of material was in there. And really the difference between this and the MasterShield system, because we took the covers off both systems at the exact same time or the same day, there was 9/10 of an ounce of material in here, but there was some water weight to that material because the gutter cover was so covered up with leaves and debris. Basically, there was no way for fresh air to get in and circulate around the interior of the gutter, which kept the environment wetter, darker, and wetter. Whereas on the MasterShield system, there was really nothing sitting on top of the gutter cover so the air could circulate through there and dry up the debris. So while there was a similar amount of debris in both, obviously a little bit more here in the LeafFilter system, a lot of it was probably just kind of the water weight of the material that was in there. So where I think LeafFilter does a really good job, to reiterate, is it will by and large keep the vast majority of the stuff out of your gutters. It's at the top echelon of all the systems that we've ever tested, and its ability to keep leaves and debris out of your gutters. It's fall flat on its face is how much stuff can potentially sit on top of the gutter cover. So in this case, 28 ounces of material we took off. So that's like 1.5 pounds of material. It looks like a lot worse on this photo than it actually turned out to be weight-wise, but that's a lot of material sitting on roughly a 4-foot section of gutter there. And then the other area where this really got hammered was its ability to take in water. And really, I think it's twofold here. Or it's primarily because so much debris built up on top of it. It just created, it's not like the screen itself clogged. I was never, if we wiped all that stuff off the top, yeah, you'd have some dirt and kind of mud-like stuff sitting on top of the screen, but it's not penetrating through the screen in this particular screen. So it's really, its ability to take in the water was, frankly, the water, I think in large part, just couldn't even get to the screen. I mean, you see how much stuff is sitting on top of that system. So it was last place in its ability to take in water after 3 years, whereas the first year that this product was up there, it was at the top of the heap. It was like either number 1 or number 2. MasterShield and LeafFilter were like within a hair of each other in that first year. But as time marches on and people aren't buying gutter guards to sit on their roof for a year, they're buying them hopefully so they never have to worry about it again. So year 1 did a nice job taking in the water. Year 3 came in last place of the long-term testers for this particular test. Now we're looking at Klean Gutter on the north side of the garage. Klean Gutter was, we tested it previously. We kept the video out of the, we basically swapped or flip-flopped the series, so we kind of took our testing out of order. And so you will see in 2025, I don't want to give it away, but in 2025, Klean Gutter is going to win. So I've kind of front loaded it. Klean Gutter did a heck of a job in that test. Did less well overall in this test, and I'll kind of explain why. So when we tested Klean Gutter in the series that is yet to be released, the 2025 series, It was located on the south side of the garage. Overall, the south side of the garage is a friendlier place to be. You know, if you're a gutter guard, you want to hang out on the south side. You get plenty of sun. It's drier, whatever. It just seems, at least in my installation, it was kind of the place to be. If you're on the north side of the garage, it's going to be tougher. You know, it's less friendly. It's grittier. More likely that you might see moss and other kind of stuff growing on the roof there. So just a tougher place to be. And essentially, we had to move Klean Gutter from the south side of the garage to the north side of the garage. So in many respects, this was a brand new installation. In fact, I may have used a brand new panel for this. I don't recall now because they'd sent us a few different panels to test. What I will say up front is they've changed the design a little bit, but not extensively, but maybe materially. So if you look at the top photo there, the May shot, you can see that it's an all-screen system. So it's basically a four-part system. You've got a little bit of metal at the front. You've got some metal on the back that slides up under the first course of shingles. You've got that expanded metal framework on the underside, and then on top of that, you have a very fine stainless steel screen. Unlike the this is made by the same folks who make MasterShield. Unlike the MasterShield system, what you don't see is copper woven into the screen. Well, since we did this test, they changed that screen design, and they have woven 5 strips of copper into the screen. The reason I bring that up is because I think that would have made a difference with this test, because something happened with this test that I've never seen in any of the other tests with any of the other products that we've ever tested. And I've tested these things for years. So I'll get into that here in a little bit. But if we just focus in on the top right shot there in May, you can see on this wet day that we had some pine needles, we had a few bits of leaves, and we have a little bit of the locust flower activity coming off the roof there. Not a big deal. It looks good to start the year. Come October, you can see pretty much the same thing. You got some stuff loosely sitting on top of there. One of the things I liked about this product is it has a really tight screen. I mean, it is a screen that will keep pretty much everything out of your gutters, at least from its ability to get in through the screen itself. Shingle granules, I suppose dirt and other organic matter can break down and kind of filter through there. But by and large, it's going to keep the pine needles out. It's going to keep the oak tassels out. It's going to keep the helicopters out. It's going to keep all the stuff that you don't want in your gutter out. And that is true here in that October shot. What you see up there will eventually kind of shift off as you get down to April. You can see that there's really nothing sitting up there other than a couple of pine needles, maybe a couple of stems off the locust tree, although those could be pine needles, I'm not sure. And then you're seeing some of the purplish flowers off the redbud tree that just kind of sits on the back side of the garage there. So some of that stuff has made its way in for the spring as we're getting ready to take the gutter cover off. But the amount of stuff that was on there at the beginning, the amount of stuff that was on there at the end is negligible, and that's really what you want in a gutter guard. By the fact that it slides up under the first course of shingles, gives you the forward slope that you're looking for to drive that stuff off the top, and it did a very effective job. Where this thing fell down in our long-term test this year is that a film, I mentioned earlier in this sequence that we put a screen over the downspout opening inside the gutter so that when we collect any leaves and debris inside the gutter, we don't want that all to vacate out the downspout and go to the ground. We'll never know how much is inside the gutter. So we put a micro-ish mesh screen. It's not super fine, but it's not super tight either, over top of that downspout opening to try to capture as much debris inside the gutter as possible, so that when we go to take this cover off, we can see what's inside the gutter with a pretty good representation of the year. What's interesting about this system is when we did the water test, so let's go look at we'll look at the debris first. So this got 1 ounce of debris in it over the course of the year. That is excellent. We had LeafFilter up there for 3 years. It did 0.9 ounces, so 1/10 less than the debris that we had here in the Klean Gutter system. If you were to compare this to any of the other gutter guards that we tested for 2024, this thing would have been number one. It would have beat every other system by a reasonable margin. I think, yeah. So perhaps the other system that would have been close to this is the All-American Gutter Protection System / ArmourGuard, based on the fact that I slid it up under the shingles. So by all accounts, Klean Gutter does an excellent job keeping leaves and debris out of the gutters. Its ability to shed leaves and debris off the top, excellent. Not really an issue. You are going to get some stuff sitting up there here and there over the course of the year. I think having all screen actually encourages some stuff to sit there that if you didn't have such a wide screen area, but nonetheless, that's the way it's designed. Where this one got hammered this year, and it confused the heck out of me, is look there. It took in less than 1/2 gallon of water on our final test. Like, that is nothing. The top performing system in the long-term test was 2.12 gallons. This took in, basically, this was about 1/5 of what the MasterShield system took in. And I could not understand why. So when I went up to take off the gutter cover, I knocked on the gutter. And it was a dense thud. And what happened was a film had built up on, like an algae, had grown on top of the screen inside the gutter. And it prevented the water. It didn't prevent the water from getting inside the gutter. The gutter was actually overflowing with water at one point during my water test. I noticed it. And so that's when I knocked on the gutter, and the gutter was completely full of water. The mistake I made was I didn't put another bucket up underneath it to collect future water. But that's not what the test was about. So I was just curious how much water got inside the gutter. I can tell you it was at the tippy top because it was actually overflowing earlier in the rain test. But as it may be in this particular case, the Klean Gutter failed in its ability to basically get water into a bucket. And the reason it failed, I think, is because of that algae that grew on top of the screen inside the gutter. Now, you're never going to have algae. That will never be a problem at your house because you're never going to be dumb enough to put a screen over top of the opening of your gutter. You don't need it when you've got a system like this. So the only reason I had it was, again, I wanted to collect as much debris as possible inside the gutter, but in so doing, it allowed this algae to grow on top of the screen inside the gutter, which kept all the water inside the gutter itself, and very little of that water got into the bucket down below. So for that reason, Klean Gutter failed this test. It would never fail a test at your house, but I got to keep it consistent here. And for this particular test, it failed. So I actually told the manufacturer about that after the fact. They were very surprised, but what they have subsequently done, and actually they did this prior to me telling them about it, was they've added 5 strips of copper to this system. So MasterShield has 3 strips. They now have 5 strips of copper. I think it's either 2 on the top or 3 on the top and 2 at the bottom there to really try to kill any algae, lichen, and moss that you might potentially grow on this. I've always been worried about stuff growing on the screen, but I never really thought about stuff growing inside the gutter. Just didn't seem like a probable thing to happen. The fact that they've put copper in there now, it should prevent that from happening because essentially copper is an antibacterial metal. It prevents the buildup of algae, lichen, and moss. So as the water would have come across that, whatever stuff that was inside the gutter that allowed that to grow on top of the screen over my downspout opening wouldn't have been able to grow because it would have been killed up top. So That's why you can see I have a few asterisks here on the left-hand side. I kind of explain what happened. Overall, Klean Gutter is an excellent system. It's if you're in the market for a gutter guard, this is one that you want to look at. Some people might ask, what's the difference between this and, say, the MasterShield system, because they both look like they have a similar sort of screen. Obviously, they both have copper at this point. Primary difference is this one is 4 pieces of metal. You know, again, you've got the framework across the front lip. You've got a piece of metal up underneath the shingles to kind of bind everything together. You've got the screen on top, and then you've got that expanded metal base behind it. The MasterShield, on the other hand, is 2 pieces of metal. It's two components. It's the very fine mesh screen that gets crimped and glued into the center channel over a single piece of roll-formed aluminum. So the ability, MasterShield is a more rigid product. It's a more flexible product in the sense that it's a longer panel, so it slides a little farther up under your shingles, and it's more versatile in that regard. So if you have a wider gutter, you've got a long drop, you've got a drop from one end to the other. That's quite a drop. You may not be able to get the Klean Gutter system up under the shingles. It might have to live within the gutter, which means you need to modify the way in which it installs. But if you have a 5-inch gutter, generally speaking, it wouldn't be a problem, I don't think. But it is overall, I think it's a very good system that you would want to consider. So with that said, you can see here for the long-term testers, it basically came in last place out of 3 systems, with the caveat that I've explained on the graphic itself and here in person. So that is Klean Gutter, part of the long-term test on the north side of the garage. For this last slide, what I did was I took the 2024 rankings and I put them into 2 columns for debris test results as well as water test results. We'll just kind of rip through those and show you what is what. So on the debris test, ranked from best to worst, so number 1 was ArmourGuard. ArmourGuard was installed up under the shingles. It was an alternate under the shingles installation method. That's not how we received the material. So had it been installed within the gutter like some of the other systems, it would not have ranked so well, but by us being able to slide it up under the first course of shingles, that made a big difference, and it ranked number 1. Number 2 was the solid gutter cover. That is the product that you can buy at Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace Hardware. It's a DIY product. It is literally available all over the country. That was a surprise winner in our tests. I didn't think that thing stood a chance. And, it did an awesome job on the debris test results. It does have some caveats to it, so it's worth watching the videos to kind of see where things go a little bit awry. But if you look at it over the course of time, the solid gutter cover did well enough to rank number 2. The GutterDome was the 3rd best performing in terms of its ability to shed debris. There was basically nothing sitting on top of it at the conclusion of the test, and there was a nominal amount of material inside the gutter at the end of the test. Number 4, Valor, also installed up under the shingles. That was using an alternate under the shingles installation method, similar to the ArmourGuard system. Below the Valor, there at the number 4th spot, you'll find the Valor installed within the gutter. Had a different result. Number 5 was HydroFlo. So that is that was installed on the south side of the garage. That is a system that you can get at some building supply places, and lots of video on that one. So that came in kind of middle of the pack there at number 5. The reverse cheese grater for debris took in a lot more debris than perhaps it would have you believe, but otherwise did a little bit better elsewhere in the test. The RainDrop system, that was the kind of sleeper product for the year. We hadn't seen that product before. We had heard from a lot of people, either they love it or they hate it. In terms of the debris, we'd have to say, it performed relatively poorly. in our tests. Did an effective job keeping stuff off the top of the gutter guard, did a poor job keeping stuff out of the gutter itself, which is why you want to have a gutter guard, keep stuff out of the gutter. And coming in last on the debris test results is Valor that was installed within the gutter. So the material that actually got inside the gutter was actually a little bit worse than its counterpart that was installed up under the shingles. However, the amount of debris that built up on top of it was wholeheartedly unacceptable. And the combination of the interior buildup and the exterior buildup meant that it was like something close to 2 pounds worth of material, most of that being on the top side of the gutter. Now over to the water test results. So whereas RainDrop did relatively poorly on the debris side, it did an excellent job on the water test side. It came in number 1. Number 2 was the solid gutter cover. So if you look across the columns there, you're going to see solid gutter cover for number 2 on the water test and number 2 for the debris test. Totally amazed me that it did as well as it did in the testing. Number 3 is ArmourGuard. And again, ArmourGuard, we changed the installation method. This was designed to live within the gutter. We changed it to slide up under the first course of shingles. The good news about that is if it does well at an angle, taking in water, it'll do well at an angle, or it'll do well sitting flat inside the gutter. So your best bet, if you get this product, is to have it installed up under the shingles because it's going to shed the leaves and debris really well, and it's going to do a nice job taking in the water. So don't be afraid of asking your installers to do that for you, even if that's not something that they typically do. Number 4 is the reverse cheese grater, another building grade gutter guard product. We don't see a whole lot of this on the marketplace. But it came in at a respectable number 4 for the water test, so it was right in the middle of the pack. Number 5 was Valor. Again, under the shingle installation method, it performed just marginally better than number 6, Valor, installed within the gutter. And again, you would think installed flatter in the gutter would allow more water to get into it, but in this case, those two were reversed. So Valor, if you install it up under the shingles, it's going to apparently do a little bit better job taking in the water than if it's sitting flat inside the gutter. And I think really the reason for that is it doesn't have nearly as much stuff sitting on top of it, so more water can get to the screen and get into the gutter system. It's a better installation method if you can, again, convince your installer to do it that way. Number 7 is GutterDome. GutterDome is did pretty well on the debris test, number 3 on the debris test, but unfortunately it was number 7 on the water test. And there's not much more I can say about it. I've talked plenty about it in the videos, and really kind of my disappointment with that product. If it was designed better to take in the water, it would be a whole different ball game, but it's not. So that's that. Number 8 is HydroFlo. HydroFlo is another micro-ish mesh type system, also designed to sit flat inside the gutter. So similar to Valor at number 6, HydroFlo sits pretty flat. I mean, we put it up at a little bit of an angle, but apparently that angle was too dramatic for the HydroFlo because it took in the least amount of water among all the gutter guards for the 2024 test, and that included things that weren't micromesh, didn't have screen on it. Let's move on to the top 5 debris test results and the top 5 water test results. So what I decided to do here was introduce the long-term testers, which were MasterShield, LeafFilter, and Klean Gutter, systems that had won previously. And in this particular case, for the top 5 debris test results, MasterShield was a easy winner, clear winner. It beat the pants off these other systems by a mile. Just to give you an example, basically the amount of debris that got inside the gutter was the same amount of debris, or was the same weight as what the baggie was that we put the material into. So the baggie comes in at 0.2 ounces. and that's what the total weight was, including the material that got inside the GutterGuard after 3 years. It had been installed for 37 months. So MasterShield did a great job keeping leaves and debris out of the gutters. It also did a really good job keeping leaves and debris off the tops of the gutters. Klean Gutter came in number 2. Klean Gutter, whereas MasterShield had 2/10 of an ounce, Klean Gutter came in at 1 ounce even. So basically had 5 times more debris in it than the MasterShield system. And 1 ounce compared to some of the other systems is awesome. It did a really nice job. Number 3 was ArmourGuard. ArmourGuard came in at, I believe, 1.9 ounces. Let me just check my stats here on that. 1.8 ounces. So ArmourGuard was 1.8 ounces. So almost double the amount of debris in ArmourGuard that there was in the Klean Gutter system. And then number 4 was the solid gutter cover. And the solid gutter cover was close to ArmourGuard. It had 1.9 ounces of material. So only 1/10 of an ounce separating the number 3 and number 4 positions in the top 5 of the debris test results. Number 5 was GutterDome. And GutterDome, again, I've talked about it extensively, does a great job keeping leaves and debris off the top of the gutters. If that's all you had to worry about was leaves and debris and you never had any water, that would be a good product to select. But unfortunately, I can't really recommend it because it does not do well with the water. If we now move over to the top 5 water test results, number 1 this year is RainDrop. RainDrop is one of the 2024 testers, and that just eked out over MasterShield. There was I think 1/10 of or maybe 1/100th. No, it was, let's see here, what was it? Yeah, it was 1/100th of a gallon more in RainDrop than there was in MasterShield. So, one might argue that those were basically the same, but we're going to give the nod to RainDrop, which was installed for just about a 12-month period, whereas MasterShield's been up there for 3 years. Number 3 spot is the solid gutter cover. So again, that continues to impress. It's made the top 5 list on both sides of the ledger. Number 4 was ArmourGuard, and ArmourGuard again was a modified installation method where we slide it up under the first course of shingles. Did a nice job taking in the water, and that is a product that you can install on your house with confidence that it's going to do a good job for you. Rounding out the top 5 water test results is the reverse cheese grater, which is a builder grade product available at various supply houses. Potentially, maybe something that your gutter contractor could get his or her hands on. We don't see much of it these days, but I thought it would be a good one to introduce into the test, and it made the top 5 in when combined with both the long-term testers and the 2024 results. So there you have it. You can see some notes kind of below that, the asterisks, what is what. But we have now finalized the 2024 test. We've introduced a little bit of the long-term testers there at the end, so you could kind of see how they stack up. And, if you have any questions about this, if you would like to learn more about what GutterGuards Direct does and how we can help you out with your water and gutter problems, feel free to give us a call at 1-800-750-2131. Again, that's 1-800-750-2131. We'd appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe buttons, and be sure to ding the bell and you'll be notified the next time we upload a video.